Hi, and welcome to the Lone Star Play Podcast, where we sit, eat, chat, and repeat. I'm your host, Patrick Scott Armstrong, and we are coming to you from Austin, Texas. The Lone Star Play Podcast is produced by Texas Real Food. Go to texasrealfood.com, and you can search your city for local restaurants, stores, butchers, farmers markets, and more who are using organic, fresh, artisanal, and local sources. It's a fun site that brings all natural options all together.
This is the other thing I figured out doing sports years ago. I always say this, which offends some people, I guess. I mean, if Jesus came back and decided to fill in and run for president in November, he'd only get 64% of the vote, if that, right? And he's the perfect man, isn't he? I mean, isn't he the perfect man, you know? And 36% of the people, and especially among many of those who profess to be Christians, 36% of the people say, nah, I think I want the other guy. You have to understand, I just started texting about a month and a half ago. I just started emailing about a year ago, and I just got rid of my flip phone about a year ago. So I'm a little bit behind the technology curve here.
Well, the flip phone's making a comeback, I think.
Yeah, I see that.
You might be good
I was
there.
ahead of my time.
Yeah, you were ahead of your time. My mother's never emailed, or she's never used Google before. She doesn't even know any of that stuff. So, that's fine with me. Well, Dale, again, thank you so much for joining me. We'll just jump right into this. I have a bunch of questions from you. I actually grew up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I've known you my whole life. I went to Colleyville Heritage High School is where I graduated from in 1998. So, but I, went to school in Texas my whole life. I've known you. Been watching you my whole life. This is just like a dream come true for me, to be honest with you. So,
well, you're very kind.
Yeah, yeah. It's it's just crazy. My brother and I both, my father, rest in peace. We would all just, watch you growing up. So, how long have you been in Dallas at WFAA? How long has that been?
At WFAA, I'm about 37 years and 2 months.
Wow.
It'll be 40 years in August. I came to Dallas in August of 1980. So I've been on Dallas TV for 49 years, and then 37 years and 2 months I've been at Channel 8 WFAA.
Wow, that is, and there's no sign of slowing down. You're only getting more popular.
Well, I thought I would have been retired a long time ago, and now I don't plan on retiring anytime soon. But I mean, in this world that we live in now, that's not really my call as much as it used to be, maybe. But yeah, I mean, things. I've kind of morphed into to a different level of covering sports and the commentaries that I do on social issues and the like. It's kind of given me a whole new support group out there in many ways, and a whole new hate group along with it, of course, which actually I kind of enjoy. So no, I don't plan on retiring anytime soon, anyway.
We don't want that. I'll be honest with you right now. I can tell you that we do not want that. We need you, especially now more than ever. Your social commentary just on everything that happens. A lot of people look to it. I know that personally. That a lot of people look to it. They feel supported by. They share it. And what I love most about it is that they're short and sweet, and just to the point and easy to digest. And I just love it. And especially in a place like Dallas, I'm liberal myself, and growing up in Texas, it just wasn't, honestly, it wasn't something I was expecting you to start saying, to be frank with you.
I think that's been part of the appeal nationwide, certainly. I mean, I've been writing commentaries for actually quite a while, but the first one that really went viral, I guess you call it, or national, was the Michael Sam commentary. About 6 years ago, when he came out while he was a football player at Missouri. And I think that's been the overriding theme that I think has led to the interest, if you will, of a lot of these commentaries, is that if a guy like you, even, big, thick, black hair, flat belly, all that kind of good stuff, And if you had said many of the same things that I say, I don't think it would have resonated quite as much, because as almost every email I got from the Michael Sam commentary, from people around the country, around the world actually, but they almost always began with, "I couldn't believe that an old white guy in Dallas, Texas was going to be saying some of the things that you say." I mean, I was prepared to kick in my computer screen, and I was, I was going to fly to Dallas and march in protest,
Oh
and
gosh.
so I think that's part of it. And I do think, I mean, it kind of fits the format for me, but it's also what I think does work. They're about 2 minutes long usually. I wrote one a couple of years ago that was about 4.5 minutes long, and I got ridiculed for it in many ways. And I think a good editor probably would have taken that back to about 2.5, and it been a better piece.
Yeah.
So I try to keep them about 2 minutes. I do write. I don't think I write anything spectacularly deep or poetic or something. I think I have a simplicity to my writing style that just kind of resonates with people. At least I hope it does. And as I've said many times, if it wasn't for WFAA giving me the opportunity to write the commentaries, then I think I would have retired, because as arrogant as this might be, my life just had to be something more than ball scores and highlights. I mean, I had to do something more than just ball scores and highlights. And if that's all I was allowed to do, then I think I probably would have walked away a long time ago. I
Wow.
still like ball scores and highlights,
Sure.
uh, but I don't like them nearly as much as I do a good commentary that I know is going to respond or going to resonate with people, and make them talk and make them think.
Well, it's difficult to ignore the social commentary that exists in sports today. It's not just what
Yeah.
sports, maybe, when I grew up in the 80s and even early 90s, it wasn't the same. These things weren't really talked about. It's just part of life now, and it's part of sports. So I think you making that pivot, and I think it's absolutely wonderful. Again, it does resonate with people, and it is something that you know it makes an impact. It really
Well,
does.
yeah, I mean, I've always said, and I think I'm right about this. I mean, sports is in so many ways just a metaphor for life.
Yeah.
Almost everything and I've used this story a million times over the years, but my dad took me to the baseball field when I was 4 years old, and basically said to me then, "We're going to start teaching you everything you need to know about life, and you're going to learn it on this baseball field." And it's true, whether it's competition, whether it's sportsmanship, whether it's fair play, whether it's being part of a team, whether it's working for the betterment of the company as compared to the individual,
Yeah.
whatever it is, you can always find the lesson in the games that we play. And then the fact that sports has become, and I think in many cases, has become too big of an issue in our society. Where major universities, cheat to win football games. Um, when people overlook the transgressions of professional athletes because they are professional athletes, then I think the pendulum has swung too far. But at the same time, it's that lesson of life, because I always talk about how athletes get this special treatment. Well, pretty much all rich people get special treatment, you know,
Yeah.
and I think it's a problem in society
Sure.
that as we're seeing now with all the protests after the George Floyd killing in Minnesota. If George Floyd played fullback for the Dallas Cowboys or the Minnesota Vikings, that would have never happened to him. It would have
Yeah.
never happened to him. Um, I mean, athletes get treated differently, as do privileged people in our society, which is just another thread you can kind of pull on to say, hey, let's talk about this in a sports context, but then let's bring it over to how it impacts the lives that we're all trying to lead. And I think for the most part, I've been able to do that, and it's fun for me, quite frankly. I mean, it's and there's just really no fancier word to put on it, no better way to describe it. When I sit down and write something that I really like, it's just fun. I mean, it's literally fun to write this piece, read it to my friends, see their reaction, read it on the air, and read the reactions, whether positive or negative. I enjoy the heck out of it. I just flat enjoy it, and it's a fun thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, getting that feedback, it's what, what thrives artists. You sound like an artist, talking about like being at a concert or a show, just feeding off that energy, which is great. I'm curious if you've received any backlash from WFAA, like for going out of the maybe out of your lane, if you will. I hate to put it that way, but has there been any sort of backlash to that?
No, the closest that would ever be the backlash, as you say, has never really been about anything that I've written about the social issues. But several years ago, there was a story involving Cowboys owner Jerry Jones. And a kid in a bar had secretly recorded him. I don't know if you remember this or not, but a guy had secretly recorded the conversation. And Jerry was just being Jerry, and just saying some incredibly outlandish things. Nothing in particular, but I mean, just again, he was drunk and he was being Jerry
Yeah,
Jones.
yeah,
And he tried to sell the audio tape, and nobody wanted it, and it wasn't a big story. And in fact, different radio stations had said, "Well, we're not even interested. It's just we don't know what it is, whatever." So anyway, a local radio station decided to air the audio. Then our station wanted me to run the story, and I refused to do it. And for a couple of reasons. I mean, one, there wasn't any news value to it at all.
yeah.
Two, I mean, we really don't know has the date been doctored. I mean, I'm pretty sure it hadn't been, quite frankly, but we don't know. So in the argument about me refusing to air that particular story, the news director said, "Well, why don't you just write one of your famous commentaries about how wrong we are to air it?" And I'm like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, go ahead. You go. We're going to do the story without you. We'll have one of our other reporters do it. And then you write one of your famous commentaries about how wrong we are." And as a friend of mine who worked there at the time, named Billy Sons, said to me, "Do they have a clue what they're in for?" Excuse me. Oops, my phone's ringing here. Hold on a
Oh, no
second.
worries.
Let me kill this. I thought I killed it. Another example of my technology problems. But anyway, I said, so I basically said, WFAA does things right 95, 98% of the time, in my opinion. But this is a horrible decision. This was an absolutely horrible decision because it was simply a story that was titillating. And, I mean, TMZ, I think, would have been all over it, but we're not
Sure.
TMZ.
Yeah.
And the response to it was incredible, except from management at Channel 8.
Hey, but they told you to do it.
Well, yeah. No, I mean, and all they did was the general manager, just one of my favorite people I've ever worked for in my life, a guy named Mike Devlin, was the general manager of the station. And he walked in, and I knew he was upset. I knew he was angry. But he just kind of did the dance around my desk area. We were talking about everything, and he just didn't want to bring it up for whatever reason. So as he's leaving, like the idiot that I am sometimes, I said to him, "What, nothing about the commentary?" And oh my gosh, he spun on a dime. And he said, "You better be really happy that you work for a station that allows you to say that kind of stuff." And I said, "I am. I've never doubted that." And but I mean, they didn't kill the commentary.
Yeah.
They didn't, reprimand me in any because again, as you said, Patrick, they told me to do it. Number one.
Yeah.
I think the news director might have gotten in a little trouble from corporate as
Sure.
to why I say that. But here's a favorite thing that has always ticked me off about this. So I mean, I got letters from news directors, from sports anchors, other station managers around the country, saying how much they love the commentary, because I do think our business, and I use a big umbrella when I talk about our business. but we really have slipped into the gutter too many times, that we look for that titillating expose that serves no real purpose. And I go to the extreme of, John Kennedy used to hang out with more women than Bill Clinton and Donald Trump ever thought about. But we didn't know that. And I don't think that really hurt me much. I liked it better under John Kennedy than I did Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. So I take that same philosophy to sports. That, as I said to Jerry Jones, and Jerry Jones complimented me for it just last year, as a matter of fact, unless it impacts your professional life and has a direct impact on the team that you're responsible for, I'm not interested. And I've said this forever. The stories that I know about players and athletes and owners and all these different groups, some of the things they've done, I'd have been interviewed nationwide 1,000 times, but I don't do it. For a lot of reasons, but that being the main reason. Having said all that, Mike Golick went on ESPN, his morning radio show, and he said, this guy in Dallas doesn't understand. He just doesn't understand. He said, you have to give the audience what they want. And it's not up to Dale Hansen to decide what he's going to give his audience, because he has an obligation to give them what they want. And I sent him a very nice email. I said, then why don't you give me news headlines? Why don't you give me the weather forecast? Why don't you give me the stock market report? Instead, you sit there for 4 hours and you talk about nothing but sports. You don't mention one single news story. You don't mention anything about the weather. You don't mention anything about the stock market, because you decide that your audience is going to get this and this only. And if they don't like it, they can turn the dial, right? So why am I not doing exactly the same thing you're doing? I tell my audience that if you want titillating stories about Jerry Jones being drunk in a bar, turn the dial. Go someplace else. I've been doing that for 40 years. How'd it work out? I mean, I had people years ago when the Stars, the hockey team, first came to town, and I wasn't covering them very much. And people realized, well, if you don't, you never give hockey enough coverage. I want more hockey coverage. And I actually said to the guy, why don't you go to Channel 5? I said, they cover the hell out of hockey. I said, you ought to go to Channel 5. He actually called the general manager and said, hey, I called Hansen, and he told me to turn the dial and go to Channel 5. Kathy Clemens was her name at the time. She called me and said, you actually told him to watch Channel 5? I said, well, if he wants hockey, he's going to have to go someplace else, because I'm not covering hockey. So as I said, the funniest thing to me was Nate Newton said one time, and they quoted this in a newspaper story. He said, we love Hansen because he knows about our drugging, he knows about our whoring and our drinking, but he never reports on it. And I said, well, Nate, I appreciate the thought, but I'm not exactly sure that helps me very much. I'm not sure that's the best compliment I've ever had. But at the same time, last year at training camp, Jerry Jones called me into his office. And he and I butted heads pretty good off and on over the years. But I think there's a mutual respect there from each one of us. That is why we have the relationship we do. And he calls me in. He said, I've been meaning to tell you this for several years. You told me in 1989 when I bought this team that my personal life was private and that you would never report on my personal life unless it impacted my professional life. I.e., as I said to him one time, he was with a gal or something. He said, you going to report on this? I said, well, unless you trade Troy Aikman to prove to her how much power you got, no, I probably won't. I said, you trade Troy Aikman, I'm going to bust you. I'm going to bust you. And he actually said, he said, you walk the talk. He said, you have never wavered on that in our, 30 plus years. And I said, no, I know a lot of stories that, somebody probably, I'm sure many people would have reported.
Sure.
but I just don't. I just don't. And that's a long way of getting back to your original question. In all seriousness, that's the only time that Channel 8 has ever said, hey, don't ever do that again. And that's as close, I should say. There was one commentary that I wrote about a Little League Baseball commissioner, which was a really horrible thing that I wrote. And they didn't kill it, but they wanted me to come in and rework it. But I had time to cool off, and I said, no, it's stupid. I mean, they said, no, we're not killing the commentary. If you want to do the commentary, but you've gone too far. And without question, I had. It was just a stupid Little League fight involving my grandson, and I wrote this scathing piece. It was just stupid, and they saved me from myself.
That's good.
But even then, they called me back and said, hey, the general manager called me back and said, Dale, I'm serious. If you want to do this commentary, fine, but this man's not a public figure. We need to clean up some of it. And I said, well, yeah, no, we need to burn the entire commentary because it would just be venting out of control. Having said all that, I don't think for a moment that they agree with everything I say. But I just have the greatest respect, and I've been so incredibly lucky to work for a company that allows me to do what I do, because I doubt very seriously they agree with everything.
I think that's great, though. I mean, I think that's great. I think that from a fan perspective, right, of watching the news and whatnot, I think that says a lot about the company and letting you. They may not agree with you, but they let you, say that. So I think that's great.
I think it says a great deal about the company. Ed Barnes, the critic here in town, he's retired now, but he wrote one time that if you enjoy Hansen, enjoy him now, because there won't ever be another one. Not meaning for a moment that somebody can't do what I do, because there's a bunch of people who can write and do what I do. His position was that once I do retire, that WFAA and the Tegna Corporation would never want someone like me again. I don't think that's true, but I know for a fact it's true for stations around the country.
Yeah.
And I'm a little bit concerned that there might be some truth to that, but I doubt it. I mean, it's like I've always said when people say, well, just shut up and give the ball scores. Just shut up and give the highlights. I grew up reading the newspapers, listening to radio, whatever. If you're a sports fan, especially if you're a sports fan, when you pick up the newspaper, the first thing I always did for years was go to the sports page. And the first thing I did when I went to the sports page was go to the columns. I'm not interested in reading a recap of the ball game. I mean, I pretty much know how the ball game came out. But I wanted to hear what Randy Galloway said about it. I wanted to hear what Blackie Sherrod had to say about it, what Skip Bayless had to say, what Frank Luxa had to say, Kevin Sherrington, whatever. You read the opinion pieces. And all of sports is an opinion. So there's kind of my starting point that, if the Cowboys beat Washington, was it because the Cowboys played great or because Washington was horrible?
Yeah.
Well, if you read the Dallas Morning News, the Cowboys played great. If you read the Washington Post, Washington played horrible. My dogs are on the attack. But, Chris, grab these guys. What do you do when you've got two objective newspapers, high journalistic standards, and one of them says that the Cowboys' offensive line was incredible and the defensive line was even better, putting pressure on the Washington quarterback, and then you read this very objective report in the Washington Post, and it says the Cowboys or the Washington defense couldn't tackle anybody and the offensive line couldn't block anybody. Well, it's somewhere in between there. It's the actual truth is somewhere in between. And I think I figured that out a long time ago. So it kind of led to me doing what people consider to be this opinionated sportscast. And I'm always like, well, everything's an opinion in sports. Everything's an opinion. So what the heck?
Well, again, like you said, it opened you up to brand new support and also hate. But with with popularity, that's just bound to come. I think the people that tell you just give the sports scores, they're basically just telling you, I didn't like what you said.
Oh, it's
That's
exactly
all, right?
that's
I mean,
all.
that's all it is. If they liked what you said, they wouldn't even say anything about it. They would praise you like I'm doing.
Well, yeah,
Which
no, that's I've had that. As I've always said, if I had a nickel for every time somebody said to me, "I'm never ever watching you again," because you're outlining, you probably couldn't do this hookup that we're doing right now because I'd be on my private island down in the Caribbean with no Wi-Fi. Um, I would have retired and bought my own island and hit golf balls into the ocean. And it's just part of the deal. I mean, and then the flip side of it is that I also say, and this goes back to that argument about, well, I do what I do, and then the audience will decide. And if and when the audience did decide that, well, we're not interested in that, well, then either I would have had to change, or Channel 8 would have had to change me. Because as I say to all the critics that write, if I do eliminate the commentaries, which a lot of people do appreciate that I do, what do I say to them? I don't do any more commentaries. I'm sorry, because Larry in DeSoto didn't want me to do any more. You know, so I've got old Larry now, but I've lost
yeah.
Bob and Martha and
Uh,
the thousands and thousands. So what I do is just like I said, hey, turn the dial. I mean, and not always, but then
Larry's gonna keep watching anyway, right?
Patrick. This woman writes me. I did this commentary a month or so ago about whatever, and, and she just writes me. Boy, she is so mad she can't. I mean, it's just the venom is just jumping off my computer. And she goes, "I quit watching you years ago, but last night you really crossed the line when you said, And I'm like, what? So I write her back because I answer every email. And I said, I'm just curious, since you stopped watching me 15 years ago, how did you find out that I said that? Well, I was on my way to the bedroom and my husband, for some stupid reason, watches you all the time. I said, okay, let me see if I get this straight. So your husband watches me, kind of like a Democrat Republican household, apparently.
Yeah, yeah.
So your husband watches me, you never watch, and you just happen to walk past the TV on your way to bed as I just happened to say that one particular line out of a 30-minute window for Channel 8 News. Yeah, I have no doubt that's exactly how it happened. I mean, it's just, think of the timing there,
Yeah.
And, but I get that a lot. I get that a lot. And,
They're just
I
angry,
mean,
right? It's just emotions.
it, yeah, it just, you're exactly right. I mean, people don't want me to stop doing commentaries. They just want me to stop doing commentaries they don't agree with.
Exactly.
If I
Exactly.
do a commentary that they absolutely agree with,
Now
then
my
I'm the
dogs.
greatest sportscaster in the history of television.
Yeah.
But since I do a lot of commentaries that a lot of people don't agree with, well, then they think I should just shut up and do the ball square. I mean, it's like what's her name, Laura Ingraham or something, the woman
Yeah.
on Fox, and she said about LeBron James, like just shut up and dribble.
Yes, I remember
Hey,
that.
you're just a basketball player. Shut up and dribble. But then she has all kinds of people on there giving opinions, and
Absolutely.
so now when you have an athlete or you have someone spinning your nonsense that you agree with, well, that's fine. That's fine. And then they hold that up like, well, not everybody believes what LeBron James believes. Here, we've got this other guy, and he says this. Well, how about this? How about that guy just shutting up and dribbling?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's laugh out loud funny to me how people don't see that. I mean, I watch a lot of television, and I watch a lot of the all sides, as we say. Just trying to kind of figure out what their thinking is,
Me too.
And I've never once written a letter to somebody and said, "Hey, why don't you just shut up?"
Yeah, me neither. Never.
I mean, I just, I I listen to it. And I think it's the most outrageously stupid thing I've ever heard. But I don't fire off a letter to Laura Ingraham or Sean Hannity or Rush Limbaugh or whatever. Like, hey, shut up. I mean,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah.
I think they're incredibly stupid, but I'm not going to worry about it.
Yeah, I think in that sense, it's just, again, she doesn't like what he said. If he would have said something that she was all for, she would have put him on the show.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And paraded him around as the voice of wisdom.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's why I've always said, especially with Fox, do they not have any producers? Do they not have somebody like in their ear going, hey, by the way, you just said something incredibly stupid right there. I mean, or by the way, the one my favorite is don't they have anybody that ever says, oh, by the way, Sean, you realize you just contradicted what you said 2 weeks ago? I mean, don't they have somebody in their office that says, Sean, you said this about Obama and you said this about Trump, and oh, by the way, you can't have both sides of that argument, and and you're trying to. I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what kind of. I mean, they make money. I'm not denying that. They make a lot of money. But
Sure.
I'd have trouble shaving in the morning doing what they do. I don't know how they do it. I honestly don't. As I always say to people, because especially when I wrote the Michael Sam commentary, I actually had people write me, several people, and say, I know for a fact that you don't believe any of that nonsense, but you're very good at writing as to what will rile up the audience. And I'm like, well, I hate to break this to you, but I've never written anything that I don't believe. I mean, some people to this day still argue that with me, but they'll say, well, your station wanted you to say that. Really? You think the station thought the best thing for me to do was to criticize Trump for criticizing Colin Kaepernick for kneeling?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Thought was a good thing for me to do in Texas. The easy way out would have been said, hey, stand up and honor that flag, right?
Yes, yeah.
And I tell you the truth, I thought I might have gone too far with that commentary back in what was that, 16, 17, somewhere there.
I don't think so. It was amazing.
Well, LeBron James liked it, and I thought, okay, now I'm in good company. But I love that commentary. As soon as I wrote it, the news director calls and said, do you have your cell phone? Because my cell phone never leaves my car. And she calls me and said, do you have your cell phone in your car? And I said, yes. And I said, okay, well, Dave Luigi wants to call you after the show. And I'm like, well, won't this be fun? And Dave Luigi is the president of Tegna News or something.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, and this was relatively early on when Tegna had just bought the station. So I didn't really know him that well at all.
Yeah.
I knew who he was, obviously. So I get into my car and I look down, the phone rings, and it's like from Virginia. And I thought, well, it's been a good run. I mean, it's been and Dave just was like, that was incredible. I mean, it was incredible. And
wow.
And I'm just glad you worked for us, And,
wow.
I mean, it was. I really thought, because I made a couple of jokes, at Trump's expense, and again, simply defending the right to kneel in Texas was not, at that time especially, not an overly popular position, you might say.
Not at all. Not in Texas. I agree.
But again, I think, but to me, the bottom line was, well, I absolutely believed it. Nobody told me to write it. Nobody encouraged me to take this particular position. I would never do that. Yeah, I tell you, well, the one thing I do hate, and again, it depends on the intent. I don't get nearly as upset about words and phrases the way maybe I should. I'm more interested in the intent. But I think I had this explained to me the other day, and I think it makes perfect sense. all lives matter. I get it. Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to blast somebody and start screaming at them, but I do think it's insensitive because it's like this. They talk about there's 4 houses on a street. Well, obviously, all houses matter, but that house is on fire. That house is on fire, and Black lives are on fire. So if you're standing there and the fire department pulls up and they say, "Well, we've got to go fix this house," and then the people next door go, "No, no, no, all houses matter. All houses matter." And they say, "Well, yeah, your house does matter, but this one's on fire." Or the same analogy, I kind of like it. You go into the emergency room and you're in there and you cut your hand, and then the next guy comes in and he sprained his ankle. Then the third guy comes in and he's got a broken leg with the bone sticking through the thigh. Well, all injuries matter, but this guy's bone is sticking through his leg. We have to address that. And I think, at least that's what I take from Black Lives Matter. And I think the reason people get so upset when someone says all lives matter, which, I mean, when you think about it, on the surface, all lives matter is a rather innocuous statement. But it is taken certainly as, oh, so you're refusing to acknowledge that Black lives are in danger here. Black lives are in trouble here. Black lives need to be respected more than they are right now. So that when someone comes along and says all lives matter, it then gets interpreted as you're dismissing the argument that Black lives matter. Sometimes they are. I mean, without question. Sometimes when people say all lives matter, they are dismissing the legitimate concerns of the Black community. At the same time, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're just stupid. Sometimes they're just ignorant. Ignorance is a better word than stupid, by the way. They're just ignorant about the issues in play here. And they don't quite understand that, yes, all lives do matter, but the house is on fire. The absolute house is on fire. I said this when we had the police, the woman who shot Botham Jean in the apartment, the police officer off duty. And I said on the air, under no circumstances would she shoot me. She would have never shot me. I'm 6'4". I'm a very large, fat guy. I'm bigger than Botham Jean. But I just don't think, I don't have a doubt in my mind. And nobody, I mean, people were upset about it, but no one really disputed that she opened up that door for whatever reason, saw a Black man standing in the apartment and fired. I don't think for a moment she would have done that if it was me. That's what Black Lives Matter means to me. And if someone then tends to trivialize that position by saying all lives matter, we get stuck in this who said what, when, why, and where. I wish, I understand why people want to get hung up on these different phrases and these different words, but I do wish people would spend more time worrying about the intent, worrying about the purpose, other than because I just know a lot of old people that were raised a certain way, and I'm not going to go back. For example, I wrote a commentary, you might remember, a couple of years ago. My dad used the N-word like it was a proper noun because my grandparents used the N-word. I mean, that's I don't know how you, but that's what they knew. That's what they did. I'm not going to go back 100 years and say, hey, they were a victim of their environment. Let's try to figure out the real intent of how they lived their lives. And then maybe we can kind of work our way through some of this. But I think if we get too caught up in all these different companies are changing labels on, I mean, Aunt Jemima's got to go and Uncle Ben's got to go. I don't think anybody's arguing about that. But are we going to get to the point where toothpaste can no longer can whiten your teeth? I mean, there is no toothpaste that can whiten my teeth, but I mean, is that bad? I mean, there was a cosmetics company that said they were going to stop using the term fair skin and white. And I'm like, really? I mean, well, again, we all are victims of our environment. But I just know for a fact that when you start using those kind of arguments, there's an element of my conservative friends, my white conservative friends, who just throw their hands up like, oh, shut up, shut up. And then Chris Rock comes along and uses the N-word. We all laugh. And say, well, how could he? Let's worry about what Chris Rock does or doesn't do. Let's worry about the master bedroom later. Let's help these other guys understand what systemic racism really does do. The impact that systemic racism and police brutality really does have on Black lives in America. Let's kind of move the master bedroom back to another day. Now, if I was a person of, as I've said this with a friend of mine, if I was a person of color, would I then say, okay, we'll get to it next year? No, I probably wouldn't. But then I also wouldn't be 71 years old at this point either. I mean, I think I'd have been marching in the streets and doing whatever I felt was going to advance the cause a long time ago. I'm trying to be somewhat pragmatic about it. My granddaughter's Black. She's 25 years old. And I tell her all the time, baby, this world is not nearly as good as it should be, not even close. But it's a hell of a lot better than the world I lived in when I was 25 years old. And it's way better than the world that your grandparents lived in, or my grandparents lived in when they were 25 years old. Now, does that make everybody happy? No. But I think we're going to have trouble moving the cause forward if we're arguing about what we call the bedroom. I think we're going to have trouble moving the cause forward if we argue about what Chris Rock does or cannot say in a stand-up comedy in New York City. There's just bigger issues in play here. And we have to figure out a way to identify that and take our victories where we can. And as I like to say all the time, I stumbled across this phrase somewhere recently. I just love it. Let's pick the hill we want to die on rather carefully. And I think that's where we're making a mistake right now. That I think the opportunity is there for some incredible advancement. I really do. And I didn't think that after the George Floyd killing, because the commentary that I wrote after the George Floyd killing is that, okay, great, let's all get up in arms, let's all march in the streets, let's all scream and yell about how bad this is, and then 2 weeks, let's move on to something else. Now, I'm not saying let's move on, but I really did believe that, okay, we'll give this about 2 weeks, much like we've given almost every other murder of a Black person in America. It has about a 14-day run. And then we find out that Trump said something on Twitter, or the Democrats did something to, pay welfare people too much money, or whatever we're arguing about. And George Floyd will be forgotten. And it's like the gun shootings is a better example. I mean, look at what we say after every single mass shooting in America. This is the one. We're going to fix this now. And we've never done anything. We haven't done anything. And yet I think, and I hope that maybe this one is different. Maybe this time, but then you look what happened in Congress. Jake Tapper was arguing with Dick Durbin, the senator from Illinois the other day. The Democrats shot down the Republican reform bill, because it didn't go far enough. And now the Republicans are in the process of shooting down the Democrats' bill because it goes too far. And Jake Tapper's argument to Dick Durbin was, well, yes, this bill doesn't go as far as you want it to, but isn't something better than nothing? And I think the reality is, and again, if I was a person of color, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't want to hear it. But I think the reality is, we used to live in a world where something is better than nothing, and we keep lurching forward. step by step by step. Because if you now decide, no, it's either all or nothing, well, then I think you're going to find out you're going to get nothing a lot of the time. I mean, I really do. I think if you, yeah, I mean, it's the same thing, the same way I do a contract negotiation. They have never once paid me as much money as I wish they would, you know? But I like to think that they probably paid me more sometimes than they wanted to, right? If your position is, I have to have everything, and again, I'm on the side of I think they're entitled to much of it. I mean, I really am. But there is this pragmatist inside me, this little gnawing person that says, we're not going to get that right now. We're just not. It's not right, but we're just not going to get that. So let's take this. And at least as it pertains to the police reform bill, I think there's a very real possibility that we're going to come out of this with nothing, just like we have every mass shooting in America for the last 30, 40 years. And I'm hoping, I mean, because this has gone on longer than I thought it would have. There seems to be some legitimate interest on both sides to fix the problems. And I think by November 5th, we'll know if we fixed them or not. I'm in favor, I'm pretty sure, from what I've read, I'm pretty much in favor with almost everything that the Democratic House is proposing. But I'll tell you one that's kind of funny, and it kind of goes back to my intent argument, you know, about banning the chokehold. I've got a brother-in-law who's a police officer, retired now. But I think his, you know, if you're saying you can't use the police hold, so this guy is in a real struggle. I mean, he's in a life or death struggle. Can he use the chokehold now? And it's kind of this argument I go back to. I don't care about the chokehold. I care about the intent. You follow me? The difference. I don't think you eliminate the chokehold. Well, yeah, we have to eliminate the chokehold when you've got the man down on the street in handcuffs and 4 cops are standing there. Who disagrees with that? But if you say we eliminate the choke, I think you should eliminate the chokehold if you're trying to arrest Eric Garner for selling cigarettes on a street corner. How do you go? How do you go from arresting a guy? Well, why are you arresting the guy for selling cigarettes? But the guy's selling cigarettes on a street corner, and it escalates to such a point that he ends up dead? The death penalty? So I think at some point you should say to a police officer, in my world, now my brother-in-law would violently, I'm sure, disagree with this, but it's like the chase. You know, like, do you really want to chase a guy through downtown Dallas at 100 miles an hour during the rush hour because he ran a red light? No, let him go. I mean, we'll either find him later by his license plate or the guy got away with it. Well, then the police always say, well, then, you know, it might be a mass murderer with bodies in the trunk. Well, yeah, it might be. I mean, people get hurt. Innocent civilians get in car wrecks and have been run over and like from stupid police chases. That's the kind of change that I want to see. You know, it shouldn't be a death penalty for wearing a hoodie at night. It should not be a death penalty for drugs, for example. I mean, there's a reason our courts have said, well, we're not going to kill you for that, you know. But I go back to the intent. I mean, are we really at a point in our society where we mistrust the police so much that using a chokehold, they can't tell the difference between using a chokehold or even choking a George Floyd as compared to you're trying to arrest this guy and he knocks your gun away and he's got a gun and your best defense is to get him in a chokehold? I think that makes no sense to me, you know. So let's find the compromise. But instead, we're at a point where, no, the Republicans think this ought to be okay, so consequently the Democrats don't. And then the Democrats say, oh, no, we got to have this, and consequently the Republicans don't. That's why I do think while I am impressed with the protesters, and I am impressed that they've kept the argument going as long as they have, because it is about 4 weeks past where I thought that the cutoff date would have hit by now. But I still think there's the very real possibility this is going to end up just like Sandy Hook. We're all going to be upset. It's going to be just like the shooting in Florida. It's going to be like the nightclubs, the Vegas shootings, whatever. Oh my gosh, automatic rifles, AK-47s. We can't. Oh no, nothing. And the greatest country in the world just doesn't have the ability to figure out why we lead the world in mass shootings. I mean, it's just obscene. It's obscene to me. And I think that's the path that we're probably going to end up going down now, because nobody wants to compromise anymore. I'm a big fan of the story of when Ronald Reagan was president and Tip O'Neill was the House Speaker from Massachusetts. And they'd fight and scream and argue all day long, and then they'd get done. They go, "You got time for a drink? You want to stay for dinner?" You're not going to get every. I mean, I really am that guy that I tend to want everything. I don't deny that. I want everything, but the reality is, as I'm unfortunate, as I also say, this is seriously, Patrick, one of the hardest things that I deal with about being 71 years old. Is I believe so strongly that my generation was going to change the world in 1966 when I came out of high school. That my generation was just going to eliminate all the discrimination, the racial biases, the religious biases, the wars in countries that you can't find on a map. We weren't going to do that anymore. We were going to fix all of that. And 54 years later, we're still killing kids in wars that we can't find on a map. We still have people being discriminated against because of the color of their skin or the religion they choose to follow, or no religion at all. And we've got people all over America sleeping on the streets and going to bed hungry at night. Because my generation failed. My generation, at least we failed because of the naivete we had of what we thought we could accomplish in 1966. But then I back up a little bit and I go, well, yeah, I failed. My generation failed. This is not the world that I thought my generation would build. And then I back up and I go, yeah, but in 1966, we did this, we did that, we had this problem, we did that. So in many ways, not 2020, you understand. I mean, this is the worst year of my life, but in so many ways, the world is better. America is better, I should say, in 2020 than it was in 1966. But it's not the world that it should be. So I tell that little granddaughter of mine, it's your turn. Drag it forward. Let's keep dragging it forward. Now, again, that's not the answer that a lot of people want to hear. And I'm sure some people will be even angry that I even suggest such a thing. But I do think we're going to have to figure out a way to live with one another and compromise with one another. And if we can't do that, then I think we're in a horrible place we might not recover from. I mean, I think it's entirely possible that we might be in a place that we cannot recover from if we can't figure out that I'm not going to get everything I want. Because I think, especially right now, I think, whether it's like gay rights, I mean, you think about this. People still use the N-word, for example, but who does it publicly? I mean, it wasn't that long ago where people used it publicly and like, yeah, okay, I shouldn't have said that. Good luck with that now. I mean, think about it. Gay rights, the homophobic slurs that people used to use in mixed company, right? Yeah, some people still do that, but who does it publicly? Who owns up to it publicly? I mean, they lose their jobs, they lose their careers now. Now, that's not the end all be all, but I promise you, it hasn't been very long ago when if you said the N word in certain settings, nothing happened. Nobody really like, nah, you know. I mean, some people were upset, some people didn't care. Now, I'm trying to think the last time I heard it. I mean, it's been a long. I remember I remember hearing it one time where a guy said it. He was drunk at a card game, and he said it. And I always speak up. And before I could even say anything, the entire table was like, "Hey, hey, hey, hey!" And man, he crawled into a ball. I mean, he was embarrassed and ashamed and humiliated. You don't hear anybody using the slurs against gays that they used to so commonly use in the 60s, 70s, even, you know? And, again, does that mean that all the problems of gays in America have been solved because nobody calls them names to their face anymore? Well, no, not exactly. Well, it's a start. Oh, it's better than where it was. And let's not get, it's just like that, they get bogged down with, I'm still trying to figure out, you're young enough, maybe you, but what's this argument about pronouns all of a sudden? What am I missing here? I, yeah, I mean, and again, I respect that. I mean, I do, I respect that, but now I sit there and I wrote a piece a couple of years ago about Mac Beggs, the transgender high school wrestler. And I'm a big supporter, and I've met his mom, and she's very calm. And now I'm sort of go, well, now I'm trying to think, well, did I use all the right pronouns? And let's say I do use the wrong pronoun, or I make some mistake about not appreciating that particular element of their lives. I'm not talking, I'm talking blacks, I'm talking Mexican, whatever the case is, immigrants, coming across the border, whatever. And I use something. Well, I'll give you a better example. We did a high school football game, and I think this is a classic example. We did. I've been so far left on the liberal scale of almost every argument for the past 50 years. And I wrote a commentary recently about the wall. And my argument was, basically the commentary was, what would Jesus do? If somebody came walking to the Rio Grande and they said, we want to escape the drug cartels, we want to escape the poverty, we want to escape the homelessness, we want to escape the dangers, the lack of schooling, the lack of health care. And we want to come to America, and we want to work, and we want to be productive, and we want to provide our children a better life. What would Jesus do? And as I also said, I'm pretty sure he wouldn't think, first thing we got to do is build a wall. I just don't think, I mean, and granted, as I understand it, he could build that wall in a snap of his fingers, right? Yeah, but well, now I just don't think Jesus would build a wall. And it always offends me when religious people, self-proclaimed religious people, say, I want to build a wall. I mean, it makes no sense to me. So I'm broadcasting a high school football game, and it was the team from El Paso where right after they had the shooting at the Walmart. Yeah, and they're playing Plano. Well, number one, as the mayor from El Paso said, I played a pretty big role. But Plano canceled the game, so I wrote a commentary that night. And I said, you can't cancel the game. I mean, that's just stupid. Just because some guy from Plano High School years and years ago shot up a Walmart, I mean, it's almost like the old argument of, well, the terrorists win. I mean, so anyway, I do this commentary that this is an opportunity to come together, and instead, the Plano School Board decide they want to cancel the whole game. I do the commentary. The next day, they reverse their position. Now, I'm not saying that I played that big a role in it, but other people did, and I'm not objecting to that, right? So we do the game. The kids from El Paso come up. They play at Jerry Jones's stadium at the Frisco Star. We televised the game on Channel 8. It was just a magnificent game. And I just love the way these kids play. Well, I've also been a non-apologist from the get-go about no pass, no play. I'm a huge believer in no pass, no play. So I'm watching these kids on both teams. Their offenses are so fast and they play at such a clip and they do so many great things. And then I said, which I've said at every banquet for 35 years, there's just no reason these kids can't get a 70 in biology when they can play football at such a high level, which I have said forever. And I said, look at them. I said, look at the way kids play. Now, in my mind, I'm talking about all the kids in Texas. And I said, these kids speak a foreign language, which to me is, and Mike Leslie was doing the play-by-play. He goes, you mean football language? I said, yeah, football is a foreign language. Foxfire to the white tango side to the X, zoom, whatever. So I said, yeah, of course. What do you think I'm talking? It never occurred to me. A lot of the kids speak Spanish on the El Paso team. The listeners in El Paso who don't know Dale Hansen apparently that well went ballistic, saying, and again, if you just take that couple of sentences and parse it right there, it sounded horrible. I admit, it sounded horrible. I made the mistake of assuming that, well, people know me. I've been saying this for 35 years. So I get a call from the radio station in El Paso, and this woman's like, people down here are going nuts. And I'm like, about what? What? And then she tells me, well, she called her husband because she didn't know me at all. And her husband said, well, before you get too carried away, why don't you Google Dale Hansen and see what he says about the wall, see what he says about almost anything in America today. Well, once she did that, then she realized, and then I went on the air and I just said, hey, I'm really sorry. It was horribly stated to an audience who doesn't know me without the context of what I'm talking about in a bigger picture. And I think it's a classic example, though, that so many people just immediately jumped to, he's got to be a racist. He's got to be anti-immigrant, anti-Mexican, whatever. I'm like, don't you even allow for the fact that maybe something's being taken out of context here? Maybe the guy just misspoke, which I tell you this again. I've used those exact lines in the proper setting 1,000 times, and I get a standing ovation from parents and educators because I just think no pass, no play makes perfect sense to me. And it never occurred to me, believe it or not, that, some of those kids speak Spanish, and I use the term foreign language. And then we immediately clarified it, that I'm speaking football. And even after we clarified it, they were still upset with me. And that's where I think we're at right now. I think liberals especially spend a lot of time sitting around thinking about what can I find that upsets me? What can I find that offends me? And they give liberals a bad name. They give liberals like me a bad name. Bill Maher talks about this a lot, that there's that snowflake element of you have to be just pure. You have to be, everything has to be exactly the way I think it should be. And anything outside that is unacceptable. And I just refuse to live that way. One of my very best friends is he thinks Fox News is a little bit too liberal. He's crazy. He's crazy. He just worships at the shrine of Sean Hannity and Rush Limbaugh, and he's one of my very best friends, one of my absolute very best friends. And we'll just sit there and we'll debate and argue and laugh, and then he tries to point out and now I've changed him, believe it or not. I've changed him on a few things over the years, not very many, but some. But the most important thing is we've been playing, or we used to, I don't play anymore, but we played golf together for 20 plus years. We drink our wine, we smoke our cigars. He comes to my house, I go to his house. If I was in trouble right this moment, he'd probably be the first guy I would call. If I needed money, he'd give it to me. If I needed him to drop everything and come drive and pick me up, he would do it. And we are 180 degrees apart. And every time I would write one of my commentaries, if he didn't see it, he would call. Like, oh my God, Hansen, what'd you do now? My phone's blowing up, you know. And they just said there, and he goes, and he said it, he goes, they'll call him. I said, man, can't you get him under control? I said, your buddy Hansen is just nuts. And Bruce always just said, oh, he's nuts, but he's got a big heart. He's got a big heart, you know. And I say the same thing about him. So I go back to the intent. Because he's a victim of his environment. And he says things that he believes to be true, and some of them are offensive. Some of them do cross over on occasion. That's perceived as being offensive. But in my heart, I know he's a good guy. I know he's a good guy. And I think too many liberals in particular spend a great deal of time trying to figure out what they're offended about. I would say my two best friends, one's an incredibly liberal guy, the other one's very conservative. I have cut off a card game. I play poker a lot, and there'll be like 8 of us at the table. 7 of them vote straight Republican ticket, without question. And especially in light of what's going on right now, we've kind of agreed, for the most part, you know, let's not go down that politics road anymore. Let's just enjoy, you know, and we do. But every so often, a guy will say something, I'll say something, you know, we'll debate it, and we move off it. And that's the end of it. There is another card game though, where I just said, okay, they crossed over so far that I'm done now with them. A couple of guys I just eliminated from my so-called circle because they were so offensive with their language. Some of the emails and this goes back to the social media thing. You know, as if the world cares what they have to say. But it did end the opportunity for them to get my money in a card game because I'm not going to play with them anymore. But I would seriously, out of my so-called, if I had a circle of 20 people that I would consider like friends, legitimate, hey, come to my house anytime, you're welcome, you have dinner. I'd probably 12, 14 of them are hardcore Republican, conservative type people. I think of this group that I'm talking about, I think they're all, for the most part, good people, you know, good people who are unfortunately very ill-informed on some topics in America today. But you know, we had a dinner party a couple months ago, 3 months ago now, I guess at least. But at the house, they're very liberal. And then Chris and I, my wife and I, are the liberal, and there were 4 other people who were very, very conservative. And it was a tremendous night. I mean, it was just a tremendous night. We touched on politics a little bit. We touched on a few things here and there. But for the most part, we talk about what unites us. We talk about what we enjoy. We talk about life, and we don't get bogged down. And okay, you know, in November you're going to vote for a guy I don't like. And you know, the last election, the guy walked out. He said, "The guy walked out. I'm standing there in line." I was ready to go. He goes, "Hansen, what are you doing here?" He said, "You're so stupid. You don't know enough about anything to vote." And I said, "Well, I know this. I'm going to cancel your vote." And everybody just howled. I mean, everybody in line just howled. And I said, "Well, I don't know much, but I know I'm going to cancel your vote." And this guy about swallowed his tongue. I mean, I'm old guys. Don't throw spitballs at a battleship here, my God. Don't try to get into a word fight with me. I mean, it's yeah. But I mean, he comes out, big old cowboy hat, the big old buckle. I mean, you know, this guy, he should have a big red R just stenciled right into his forehead. And then just looked at me and said, "Hansen, what are you doing here?" I said, "You're too stupid to vote." I said, "Huh? I may well be, but I know I'm canceling your vote." And, I mean, everybody laughed. I mean, everybody laughed. and he kind of just shrunk away, just kind of shrunk away. And so again, I love the debate as long as people are willing to debate it on a high level with that built-in respect. That's my favorite time. My wife gets really tired of it. She doesn't enjoy it. But I'm just sitting there like, I don't want to hear about, their kids are off to college now, or I'm not interested. How's your dog doing? Oh, I don't care. I got my own dog. Shut up. What are you going to talk about after a while? I mean, it's we had Bruce, this buddy of mine, Bruce, and his wife, and we're out on the patio a couple weeks ago. Actually, just the four of us sitting out there, and we're going back and forth, and Bruce and I were debating all this stuff, and it started to get a little bit warm around the edges, which a good conversation does, in my opinion. And Chris was kind of like, well, all right, let's talk about something else. And I went, wait, we haven't even got into abortion yet. We got to get into abortion. I mean, what could go wrong with that conversation, right? No, there's nothing there, And but oh my gosh, it was. I mean, I love a good, but this liberal buddy of mine, in all seriousness, he gets too heated on the other side, that which I really kind of hate, that. I mean, he's an unbelievable debater. He's a Harvard graduate. I mean, he's a very, very smart guy. And when we're together in different times and somebody says something that he doesn't, and the guy's, well, I don't know. That's just kind of the way I feel about it, right? Kind of that, which to me is the way of like, yeah, let's move on, right? And he's like, no, explain yourself. Explain yourself. I want to know what. I'm like, no, he doesn't want it. And I usually have to jump in and go, hey, let it go. Well, he's wrong. Of course he's wrong. I mean, you and I think he's wrong. He doesn't think he's wrong. We're not going to change the world tonight. And it does offend me. And I love this guy. I mean, I love this guy. But he can't let the argument go. I tend to just like explain it to me. I don't understand how you can possibly believe that. I just see if you can explain it to me. And very seldom can they, of course, or at least to my satisfaction, I should say. But I love the journey. I love the opportunity to try and figure it out. I mean, because I think it's important. And then I've used it against him. I'll come back around on another argument. Say, well, wait a minute, you said this. Well, now how about that? He goes, that's half the fun of it for me. And this is the other thing I figured out doing sports years ago. I always say this, which offends some people, I guess. But I mean, if Jesus came back and decided to fill in and run for president in November, he'd only get 64% of the vote, if that, right? And he's the perfect man, isn't he? I mean, isn't he the perfect man? And 36% of the people, and especially among many of those who profess to be Christians, 36% of the people that, I think I want the other guy, So if the perfect guy, and even when I say to my religious friends, I said, what would the vote be for Jesus in America today? And I said, and I'm telling you, especially as he's portrayed, and he shows up in a long sheet-looking outfit with sandals on and long hair and a beard. And I mean, they'd shoot him through the glass. Yeah, I'm here to see if you got some extra food, and I need some of your money, and I need some of your food because I want to go give it to these people that are homeless down the street. Oh, they grabbed that guy in St. Louis who grabbed that rifle he had out the other day. He'd opened fire, only to find out that it's Jesus. You just shot Jesus. And that to me is the stupidity of a lot of that nonsense, which is why I said when I was doing the wall, I said, okay, you've got it all figured out. You're the Bible thumper. I'm not. What would Jesus do at the wall? What would he, at the border rather? What would Jesus do? And oh my gosh, I mean, the Christians just went nuts. I'm like, I thought that was a pretty good question. I thought that's what you guys always wear on a bracelet or something. Yeah. I'm trying to help you out here. I'm trying to help you come to a good conclusion about this argument. I'm going to help you find the bottom line answer to the argument. What would Jesus do? Oh, they don't want to hear that. They couldn't answer that one. They don't want to hear that. And it's just, all of that stuff just drives me nuts. But at the same time, I mean, this guy I keep talking about, my conservative guy, and this is true. He's a roofer, right? Went to Oklahoma years ago when the unemployment rate was like 9% or something. And he said to me, I'm going to walk the talk. I'm going to hire American workers. This is after all the tornadoes, ravaged Oklahoma. He goes up there, he runs ads, and he pays good, fair salary, good, honest work. Runs all the ads for like 10 days in all the trade publications, radio stations, whatever. At the end of 10 days, 0 applications. 0. Because the American worker is not crawling up on a hot tarred roof in Oklahoma in the summertime. So he calls his guy and he says, go find me the Mexicans down at the day labor camps and bring them up. Got a bus, made $1 gazillion. And I said to him one time, and of course he wants the wall 40 feet high, and he thinks all Mexicans should be out of the country. Everybody who hasn't gone through the whole process, they should all be deported right now, And I said, Bruce, if we deported all the Mexicans, you'd be out of work. You wouldn't have a business. He goes, I know, but it's the right thing to do. I said, okay, better yet, who's going to mow the grass at the golf course where you play golf? The whitest guy in America was a dairy farmer on 60 Minutes one time in Wisconsin. The whitest guy in America. And he goes, I would love to hire American workers, but you can't get them to come in here and scoop manure out of a dairy barn. And I've done that once, by the way, and I'll never, ever do it. And he said, if we didn't have the Mexican worker, milk would be $25 a gallon. And it's true across the board. I mean, it's a great movie about, a day without Mexicans. And I'm not remotely saying that all Mexicans are going to have to pick the fruit and mow the grass and whatever. But they are. A lot of them are. And how we as a country could just turn our backs on them when in fact, our economy depends on them. And at the same time, as I also said in the commentary that I wrote a couple of years ago, what if America was the worst parts of Mexico and Guatemala and Haiti and whatever? And that was America. But we all knew that if we could just get to Canada, there would be jobs, there would be security, there would be safety, there would be family life would be improved 100%. But once we got there, they turned us away at the border and said, we can't come in. What would we do as Americans? We would swim across Lake Michigan. We would hide out in the forest of Vancouver and sneak our way into Toronto. Because by golly, we have a right to a better life. There's not a single American in this country today that if America was Mexico or Guatemala or Honduras or whatever, who would not illegally cross the border into Canada, especially if the guy at the border said, tell you what, go back, wait about 4 years, maybe 6, and then we'll see if we can get you in. I wouldn't do it, not in a million years. I would sneak in, I would sneak my family in, and the simple fact that the Canadian government said I'm not welcome and calls me a felon, no. So why should we take that attitude to the Mexican, to the Latinos who want to come in here and make a better life for themselves? I mean, it's so simple. To me, it's incredibly simple. And they said, excuse me, said, or you think everybody who wants to come in should? Yeah, I do.
Yeah, yes, I agree.
Yeah, I do. And I was starting to encourage him to go to Idaho and South Dakota for starters. We've got land. We don't all have to live in downtown Dallas.
Yeah.
We've got space. We've got space, and
We all came from somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Like we all came from another country. Why were your ancestors allowed to come, but mine can't?
Yeah, exactly right. Well, here was Trump railing about chain migration, as to, well, we have to stop this. This is just obscene. And then Melania's parents got into the country. You know how? Chain migration. I mean, really? Really? And she got a pass to the head of the line because she's a model. We just didn't have any of those in America.
Yeah.
They take American jobs. There's 3 gals live right down the street from me could be a model. Come on. She took an American job, by God. She came in as a model, and she denied that little girl in Waxahachie the opportunity to be a model. That's just wrong. That's just wrong. We got to stop that. It's just obscene. It's just absolutely obscene.
Yeah, I agree, Dale. It's confusing, right? It's just a lot going on, to be honest.
Well, it goes back to, at the same time, I'm not opposed to legal immigration.
Of course.
But nobody wants to talk about that. It's the same argument that we talked about earlier about police reform. Okay, let's sit down, and figure out how we do process people to come into the country legally. There are probably some people we don't want to come in. Okay. But you can't look a person in the face and say it's going to be 4 to 5 to 6 years. That's not an acceptable answer. It's got to be almost like going through an airport. Come on, it's slow enough going through the airport right now.
Yeah.
Let's figure out a way. Let's sit down and figure out a way. And then the hypocrisy of it. When Trump made such a big deal out of it, he had all these workers at his golf course. And all those illegal workers at his golf course. Oh my God, they all panic. And most of the people I know that rail about it benefit from the illegal worker. I'm saying, no, let's stop the illegal worker part. I agree. You want to come here? You want to work here? You want to be a productive citizen? Come on in. And and then they go, well, yeah, but there was this one Mexican guy and he shot a gal in Iowa. Here's the other thing that my new favorite mantra that I've been preaching. Why is it, and I'm pretty sure I'm preaching to the choir here, but why is it that when a Mexican shoots a guy in Iowa, it's all the illegal alien, it's all the illegal immigrants, it's all the Mexicans, when a Muslim, 19 Muslims out of what, 1.5 billion or something, 19 Muslims crashed 3 airplanes on September 11th. So we have to ban all Muslims from coming to America because we know that those 19 out of 1.5 billion represent the entire Muslim religion. But a white guy in Vegas kills 59 people, and he's just a nut with a gun. A white guy kills 20 kids at Sandy Hook, he's just a nut with a gun. A white guy kills a bunch of school kids in Florida, there's another nut with a gun. Timothy McVeigh blows up the federal building in Oklahoma City, and not one person said, all these 28-year-old guys with short hair that served in the military, we need to get them out of the country. Because these military veterans with short hair, we can't trust them. No, he was just a nut with a grudge. He just had some mistaken cause. So he blows up and kills 250 men, women, and children. And not one person, I have never, ever heard one person say, white guys in America are dangerous. And yet, what is it, like 99% of the mass shootings in America are white guys?
Yeah.
Dylan Roof shoots up the church in the Carolinas. It's like 99% of the mass shootings are white guys. Nobody ever blames the white American for that. I've never heard anybody
right.
ever.
You're right.
But when the one Mexican guy accidentally or supposedly, I don't care if he shot her in the head, shot a woman in San Francisco, well, we got to build a wall. 19 Muslims fly into the Twin Towers and the Pentagon and crash in Pennsylvania. 19 out of a billion, 1.5. We invade Iraq. And 15 of them came from Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So we spend trillions of dollars. Think about how much did we spend? How much, just the airports alone, just to change the security at the airports because of 19 Muslims and all we went to war. We lost a couple of thousand young people. How many arms and legs we've lost count that we lost?
Yeah.
The damages, the trillions of dollars that we spent trying to fix that problem. Trillions of dollars. Now we're looking at spending a couple of $1 billion to build a wall, to keep Mexicans out because some of them are druggists and rapists and whatever that stupid line was. Very small percentage, very small, but we're going to spend billions of dollars to build a wall. But a bunch of white guys blow up the federal building in Oklahoma City, and they kill people randomly with their AK-47s. What do we do about that? Nothing. Because it's just a bunch of crazy white guys.
Yeah, he was bullied, right? They always like give some like it's not even his fault. Like he was bullied. Yeah, you're right.
I mean,
it's despicable.
I mean, I would hate like hell to go through my life being painted with the brush of everybody who looks like me. You know, I think I was in part when I wrote that Michael Sand commentary. People immediately jumped to the conclusion, well, he's a 65-year-old fat white guy in Texas, so he must be a redneck, homophobic, bad guy.
Yeah.
No, not if you listen. Not if you wait before you start smashing your computer screen, you know.
I think you've helped put Dallas on another map in a lot of sense, that it shows that Texans can think like that, because I always hate traveling. I used to live in Europe as well. And I hate traveling and moving around where people just hear America, or they're the first they hear Texas. Oh, yeah. You must be, want the death penalty, where, ride a fucking horse and do this and do that and think conservatively, and you just try to explain to people that Texas isn't all like that. So I think you did a actually phenomenal job by showing America that people can think like that here. And I hate that stigma that Texans have, in that sense.
Oh, I do too. And it's across the board. I'm with you. When I traveled to Europe, and although one time we were in Europe, and I'd even forgotten about it. And I had this little necklace I was wearing, a little gold chain. I had a state of Texas on a little gold. It wasn't gold. I mean, and we're on this restaurant or something, and the woman goes, "Oh, you're from Texas." And I thought, oh, great. And when I said something, I said, no, I am. But I said, how'd you know that? She goes, well, you got the gold necklace hanging out. Oh, yeah, well, there is that.
That gave it away.
But it is. I mean, I always tell people that, now Fort Worth likes to show off as being a lot of, they got the stockyards and they have their cattle drive. And you do see some cowboy hats and a lot of cowboy boots in Fort Worth. I mean, but not in Dallas, for goodness sake.
No.
I mean, it was that whole JR back in the early '80s that showed Dallas.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
That whole image of, but I was pleasantly surprised, and I've certainly found out over the last 8-9 years or so that there's a great number of people who think like us. I mean, they don't all live in Austin. I mean, most of them do, I think.
I know.
They don't all live in Austin. And now I think it's starting to change. I mean, I think there's I think Texas. See, this is the funny thing about it. When I first came to Dallas, there'd never been a Republican governor. It was always Democrat. The state was
Yeah.
Democrat. Lyndon Johnson and Lloyd Bentsen and were, the senators. And then about 84, 86, somewhere there, it started switching, went hardcore Republican. It's never come back. But I think it started to, I think in part, maybe because of all the Californians who have been moving here. And they're bringing, not only are they bringing Toyota, bringing their jobs to Texas, but they're bringing their politics to Texas.
Yeah. Yeah. Their ideals, their morals, right? Yeah, you're right. Their
You see a little
families,
bit,
right? They're inclusive families.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, you see a little bit of the Silicon Valley aspect of coming to Austin and the like.
Sure.
And, so I mean, there is some of that. I still think there's also, I just think there is we are this, in Texas anyway, we are the silent majority,
Yeah.
I was like, this is what I do find funny is that, and I've told this before, is that I'm old enough to remember that when someone would call you a conservative, it's kind of embarrassing. That was the put down, that you were this pro-Vietnam War guy, you were this Nixon guy, and people say, you're just some Republican conservative, and it's like, oh, gee whiz, and they didn't want to admit to that. Now it's flipped. And I'm in this card game that I was talking about. One of these guys got mad at me about something. He jumped up and, you're just a stupid liberal. And I'm like, oh my, I'm so hurt by that. And everybody starts laughing. Yeah, well, you're conservative, and yet in his mind, and in the minds of a lot of people, and I have to admit, I almost kind of shied away from it for a while back in the 90s. That not just because of the job, but I don't think a news anchor should be getting into their politics much. But even with my friends, people didn't know that I was quite as liberal and far left or whatever you want to call it as I am, and I kind of shied away from it in many ways. But let's just let that sit there for a bit. I don't need to bring that up. Now I do wear it like a badge of honor. And some people still try, to act like it's the put down, but I don't have it in front of me, but the best put down of all. And I actually did it at a Kiwanis Club luncheon, by the way. Not exactly in downtown Dallas, not exactly a hotbed of left thinking democratic principles in play.
Yeah.
And I talked about being a liberal, and then I quoted John Kennedy again, and it was John Kennedy talking about, well, if you mean the definition of liberal means, and then have you heard this before? And
No.
And it's fabulous. And he said, well, I do care about the homeless. I care about the underprivileged. I don't want people to be left, and it just goes on and on and on and on. And I think people should have health care, and I think people should be free, and it's all the basic goodness of, in my opinion, obviously, of being a liberal. And I read it to the room, and I'm staring at them, and I said, now my only question is, why aren't all of you liberals? And then all of a sudden, this little groundswell of applause started coming up. And I saw the face of a few people like, that's just stupid. But a lot of people, there were some liberals in there, but when you read that John Kennedy quote about what it means to be a liberal, and I've done it at several banquets over the years lately, and I always end it with, yeah, I am a liberal. My only question is, why aren't you? Because my true definition of being a liberal simply means caring about the people who aren't as lucky as me. That's the dime store version of what being a liberal means. I think it's more liberal to not care about what goes on in somebody else's bedroom than it is from the position of the so-called conservative who cares a great deal.
Yeah.
As I said in a commentary one time, It's always amazing to me that the conservatives are the ones who want government off our backs and out of our lives, but they absolutely want it in our bedrooms. You know, I don't care if two guys, two girls, what do I care? Now, as I've also said to my friends, you get two guys mugging down next to me at a restaurant, I got problems. Just like I've got a problem if a guy and a girl start mugging down at a restaurant next to me. I go to a nice restaurant, I don't want to see you and your girl mugging up against the wall.
Yeah.
Now, if it's two girls mugging down, okay, I might wait a while before I go back. I might have to think about it. No, there's just certain. It's like illegal drugs. I don't do them. I don't. But what do I care? I mean, you want to go? That to me is a very conservative position. That I don't want the government in somebody else's life. They want to sit around at home.
That's a good point.
We have laws. We have laws. You can't drive stoned. Yeah, okay, you do that. We got big problems. So, you behave abnormally in public because of that. Okay, but I don't lock people up because they snort cocaine. Not in my world. We don't. I don't. I mean, Matthew McConaughey sits down there and he's from what I know, he's stoned all the time. I kind of enjoy his movies. What, we got to lock him up? No, of course not. What do I care? I mean, and yet so the so-called liberal opinion is really rooted in conservatism.
Well, that's interesting.
That I just want people, I don't care that people don't believe in religion the way I do. What do I care? Unless it impacts my life, I don't. Colin Kaepernick kneels for the national anthem. What do I care? What did that possibly do to me? If he believes that's the best way to protest, which is the best thing about America, is the right to protest, what do I care? I mean, that to me strikes me as being a very conservative position. But it's the liberals who want government out of our lives. It's the liberals who want people to just live free. And yet the conservatives somehow keep hanging on to that. I'm like, somebody doesn't look like, like in the black, the discrimination, which this is what I figured out a long time ago. I find it so incredibly funny that white Americans spend 6 months out of the year discriminating against people of color based on only the color of their skin. And they spend the next 6 months of the year lying in the sun trying to match it. They lay out there in the backyard, they lather up with some lotions, and they try to get as dark as they possibly can in April, May, June, July, August, and September. They want to be as dark as they can. And then they go the next 6 months of the year saying, well, I know everything about that person based on the color of their skin. We had a woman in my hometown in Logan, Iowa, went down to the Gulf of Mexico on a vacation trip and was turned down because they thought she was black. This was back in the 60s. And everybody in my hometown thought that was as funny as could be. And she thought it was funny because she had to jump through hoops to prove to them that she was actually white because she was just baked black from laying in the sun.
Wow.
And I was too young to realize it, but I didn't understand how that happens to people, And then as I got just a little bit older, not a lot, but just a little bit older, I thought, wait a minute. That hotel denied her the right to spend money at their hotel simply because of the color of her skin? That's all they knew about it. That's all they knew. And since she was so dark, they thought she was black, they wouldn't let her stay there. And then her husband gets involved and they had to call back and they had to go to prove that she's actually a white person. Oh, well, okay, if you're actually white, now you can. I mean, and it happens to this day. My granddaughter has been discriminated against so many times until people realize she's my granddaughter. Well, then everything changes.
Sure.
It's absolutely ridiculous, you know? And that's why I just find it funny, though, that when you start breaking down what it means to be a liberal, so many times you find that it really aligns with what people say it means to be a conservative. But, you know, I don't care if you go to church, or I don't care if you go to church 5 days a week. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't care who you sleep with at night. Doesn't matter to me. I don't care if you take a knee to protest police brutality. If that's what you want to do, doesn't matter to me. What was it? Somebody just wrote that recently of how much they love the American flag. I think it was one of our Supreme Court justices, if I'm not mistaken. But it was like, I mean, I respect the flag. I served in the military. I'm not gung ho about it, but I think one of the greatest things about America is that you have the right to burn the flag. I think that's an incredible right. I would never do it. I would hate to think that anybody I know would do it. But when I see somebody doing it, it just reminds me of what a great country I live in. I'm sorry if that offends some people, so be it. But try burning the flag in North Korea.
Yeah, exactly.
Try burning the flag in Russia. Try burning the flag in Pakistan. Try burning the flag in Iran. Yeah. All the countries, and this is what I find funny, all the countries that have incredibly strict laws against burning the flag are countries that I just choose not to live in. Right?
Yep.
And all the conservatives who think we need those laws, you want to align with that? China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, Pakistan. Oh yeah, yeah. Let's follow their system. That works so well for those people. You know, it works so well.
It doesn't at all, right? Yeah.
No.
Look, Dale, I'm sorry. I've got another interview at 4:00. So I could talk to you for hours. I would listen to you, really. My gosh, I just don't even want it to stop. But I have to go here. I got another with an actor that's on. You watch that show Yellowstone with Kevin Costner?
Oh yeah, I love that show.
He's on that show. His name's Cody. He plays Cody on the show.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Wow.
I don't know.
You're moving up a little bit. Then you're moving up here. Then so I love that show. That's a great show. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk to him about the new season and horseback riding, and I don't even know what else. Kevin Costner, I guess. So, but Dale, I can't tell you how much. Again, this has been a dream for me and an honor and an absolute pleasure to to just listen to you and converse with you. I just can't tell you what an honor it was for me.
Well, it was my pleasure, Patrick. Anytime. As my wife says, when she says, well, you're doing a Zoom about what? It's like, I guess they just want to talk about what I've been doing. She goes, well, you are your favorite topic.
Your wife knows you like my wife knows me.
Yes, so. Yes, I'm afraid she does. Anytime, Patrick. It's been great. Thanks.
All right. I really hope you enjoyed that podcast as much as I did. If you have any questions for me, please feel free to email the podcast at patrick@texasrealfood.com. And don't forget, you can check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, all the different places you can get podcasts. You'll find us on there. Or you can just go to our website, go to thelonestarplate.com. And you can check us out on YouTube if you want to watch it. We video these now, on a little webcam here. And go to the Texas Real Food YouTube channel, and you can find it there. Make sure to follow Texas Real Food as well on Instagram and Facebook. Subscribe. And if you are so inclined, please leave us a review anywhere you can. Follow us on Spotify or leave a review on Apple Podcast. That would really help us out. Thanks again for listening. Really do appreciate it. Without you guys, what's the point of doing this? So if you have any suggestions on how we can make the show better, please let us know. Thanks again. Be safe out there. Wash your hands.